Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. I'm the first time in Gothenburg. I have to say it's a beautiful city. My name is Evgeny Bachinsky, and I'm really honored to open the day. I will be talking about AI, and I know that for many of you it might sound, you might be a little bit of AI fatigued already, but the truth is that AI is the critical factor for business transformations across all the industries, and it's changing how we operate right now. So I hope I will be helpful in sharing our experience and also sharing practical steps of how to implement it. And but before we do that, I want to introduce myself. Again, my name is Evgeny Bachinsky. I am AI Center of Excellence lead at Sigma Software. I'm also a vice president of management and compliance consultancy at the company. But apart from work, I'm also a proud father of 3 and also an amateur athlete. So if you are up for it, we can go for a run around the city. But yeah, it's a joke. I'm not doing that today. And for the last 10 years, I've been working for Sigma Software, which is a part of a well-known Swedish group called Sigma. And we are on the market for 22 years. Founded in Ukraine, actually. So Sigma Software has been founded in Ukraine, and we joined the group in 2006. Since then, we became known as Sigma Software. And our Ukrainian roots and Swedish influence developed a culture in our organization that is truly customer-centric and hardworking, which is appreciated by our clients, as you can see here on the numbers, the customer satisfaction score and NPS. We've been working with machine learning and AI projects since 2013. And since then, we've completed over 100 of proof of concepts. Not all of those projects go live, unfortunately. And we did it for various different industries. And also, we are partnering with the major cloud providers, hyperscalers, and data platforms that allow us to build these solutions efficiently. And I'd like to continue with sharing with you typical examples of AI projects. So, of course, you can do many things with AI, but there are some typical cases that we are facing with usually, and I want to share with you like 4 different categories of those. And the first one, you guessed it, it's chatbots. Usually, usually they make up for 40% of all of the AI projects at the moment, and there is a reason for that. So this is the most reliable and consistent use case, and they are proven to be really well working in in customer-facing applications. They're available 24/7, but of course you need to do it right. Like we all faced with the chatbots that just throwing you through the endless loop. But the well-made chatbots are actually reduces the time the customer spends in customer support. And another category is copilots and assistants. And this is a little bit different from chatbots. They go beyond that because they are usually tailored for role-specific tasks. For example, in software development, you might know that there are different copilots that help actually build software, so they produce code, that they understand the requirements, they help test software. Another example would be one of our clients in telecommunication industry. So we build them the application that helps their technicians to install and configure and troubleshoot the cellular equipment. So this category of projects, they're very specific to the role and tasks. They're not just general chatbots. And for these use cases actually to work, what I want to emphasize is that they depend on clean and high quality data to perform accurately. And we need time usually to to train the models so that and to test it so that it gives consistent results. Another category is predictive maintenance. Unlike the previous example, it's not generative AI category, it's regular machine learning. And in predictive maintenance, the usual, let's say, use case is that forecasting trends, customer behavior or operational needs like supply, demand. Yeah, one of the examples would be creating a model that would analyze the social media content for advertisers and analyzing and predicting how well the advertisement campaign would go in different channels based on the comments in that, semantics, and the content itself. So yeah, this is a widely used also use case that we work with and the whole industry is working with. Another one is computer vision. Computer vision models, they allow us to process images and videos, sometimes in real time. And here on this example, this is actually the project that is developed for recognizing drones and distinguishing them from birds based on image and movement patterns. And this solution actually works even from a regular webcam. As someone who came from Kiev, Ukraine, this technology is well appreciated. This is something that really works and makes the difference. But apart from defense, this use cases, they used a lot in healthcare as well, image processing, like recognizing tumors in the early stages. We had that project as well. In retail, based on footages from the security cameras, making some forecasts and adjusting the whole area for the products, and cybersecurity as well. And again, yeah, for all of these cases, usually what's important is having high quality data, and I will return to that point later on. So of course, apart from those use cases, there are wide application of AI as well. So there are lots of other unique projects, but I wanted to emphasize those 4 categories especially. But let's take a look where it's all going. It's all going with the AI transformation. So the first, let's say, study I want to present you is the study performed by OECD. They analyzed the impact on workers' productivity depending on the category of the task. And as you can see, the gains using generative AI are pretty significant, especially in applications where you need to produce text, which is obvious, right? Especially in coding, by the way, our bread and butter. So the impact is pretty significant. And if you look at it from a different angle, this is a study performed by IBM, which is showing how much of, in different applications, how much of the work will be replaced by AI and how much will be augmented. And as you can see, majority would be augmenting our regular jobs. So just a fraction would be actually replaced. And risk and compliance, by the way, is one of the safest industries for replacing and taking over our jobs. It's only 7% replacing and 93% augmenting. So there is no doubt that the productivity will increase, and most of the gains will come from augmentation, not actual replacement of the jobs. And if the productivity increases, the next question would be reasonable to ask what the impact would be in the economy, right? So this is the study performed by PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is, I like the study a lot because what it shows, first of all, they predict $16 trillion increase in GDP by 2030, which will make up to 26% of the all GDP growth by that time. So the improvement are going to be huge. This is, you want to say, a game changer. And what I like in this graph is that you see that the lower area is, it shows how much of that gains will come from labor productivity or time saved. And what you can notice, I can use the laser, I guess, right? What you can notice is that we are approaching a peak of actual labor and labor productivity in there. So it's predicted that in 2025 and 2026 we will reach this peak, and the rest of the gains will be actually come from customizing the product, with improving the quality of them, which would stimulate the demand. So yeah, about 45% of those gains are coming from not actual labor productivity improvement, but rather products improvement, which is also interesting. And the question now is, where are we all right now? So how adopted the AI is. And on this chart, you can see that the adoption level, this is a gray line, it's been steadily increasing. And I would say that the big leap was in the last year. This is a study performed by McKinsey. And you can see the biggest leap is actually in using generative AI. This is use of generative AI. At the moment, it's at 65%. So 65% of companies use generative AI at least in one business function. If you look at the other angle, like what I like in this study performed by IBM is that, well, it shows, first of all, very similar numbers. But what I'm like here is that it also shows how many companies actually considering. They are not implementing, but they are considering implementing AI. And you can see that, for example, in 2022, there were 15% of companies who were not even considering implementing it. And now it's, I would say it's close to zero, actually. So there's no doubt that AI will be adopted by most of the companies, and it will be the most crucial competitive factor, right? So why I'm showing it to you? Well, first of all, I would say that the race has already been started, and many companies are chasing good use cases for the AI. So most of the companies that are considering implementing it, they're searching for the best use cases for it. And in many cases, the problem is they don't know exactly how to use it, and they don't know exactly, which use cases are possible to do, which not. This is where we usually consult clients, because we know the technology well, and if we have subject matter experts, we help clients to apply it better. But in order to apply it better, we need to understand the limitations of the technology. And I would say that at the moment, the AI has not reached its full potential, of course, even generative AI. So we will see, advancements pretty soon as well. But as of this moment, there are a number of limitations that I wanted to talk about. First of all is, I like this example. You can even prompt right now in ChatGPT, the latest version. You ask how many R's in the word strawberry. And it gives you the answer that there are only 2 R's in that word. The reason why it's giving this answer is because the way the AI works. I will not be giving you a lecture about how it works in details, but in general you can think about it as it just matches patterns, right? It's really good at matching patterns, so that we sometimes confuse it with the general intelligence. And most likely what's happening here is that it sees that in the word there is a double R. And double R means 2. So it just matched the pattern and gave the answer. It didn't count how many R's. But in order to overcome this kind of limitations, and maybe this would be a new information for you, there are different ways to do it. And one of those is called chain of thought technique. You might probably heard about it, and now it's getting embedded into regular solutions and chatbots as well. So what this does is breaking down the tasks onto steps. And if you break down the task, if you break down the prompt onto different steps, then the model will behave as expected. So there's going to be little room for it to give an error. So this is an example how I did it before this conference. And you can see that the result is, it's given the right result here, right? So we just asked it to count the R's and break down the word and count the letters. So maybe it would be useful as well in your application, but usually this is something we're considering also in implementing and creating more complex systems. We need to know the limitation, and we need to test it against it, and we need to check how we prompt engineer different things. Another very popular limitation is hallucination, as you can see here in this example, right? So we are asking the ChatGPT, what is the world record for crossing the English Channel by foot? And it gives some nonsensical answer. Again, the reason is very simple, is the way the models work. They are predicting the next word, right? So they match pattern, they predict the next word. And of course, the model doesn't live in a physical world, so it doesn't know, the context, and it just has been trained on texts and produces text. So that's why it's giving this answer, because it matches the pattern. It doesn't critically think about the question, doesn't think it's, doesn't make any sense, and that's why it hallucinates. And in the real-world applications, in the solutions, business solutions, hallucinations also happening, and in most cases they're happening because there's lack of data, they find themselves in unfamiliar situations and so forth. So understanding this limitation allow us to train the model better, to look at where exactly to fine-tune it, and which data to prepare for the project. So this is something to keep in mind as well when you're implementing it, and maybe you may be frustrated when it doesn't work, does the job. It's probably because of that. Another, the biggest, and yesterday during the dinner we discussed it a lot. The biggest constraint of all is data, and data quality in particular. So this problem is very common, and according to our observations, I would say 80% of the projects don't actually achieve their goals because of poor quality data. 80%. So usually what we end up doing is, we just, when we face this issue, we're just trying to fix it. We try to clean up the data, annotate it, train the model on it better, and, but these are short-term, fixes. But what you really need to do if you want to implement AI is to have the data governance framework, which is also something that, many companies are currently concerned with and implementing, in rushing to implement. Another thing to consider is the quality and security. With great power comes great responsibility, right? So with new capabilities, there are new security threats coming in. And this is the top 10 security threats made by OWASP for large language model applications, and there are a number of new things that actually we've never faced before. The first one is the prompt injection. You may probably heard about it. If not, it's when someone designs the prompt the way so that the model gives wrong results, so the model is broken down, or it leaks some data that it has access to. Another security issue is output handling. There's a funny example. The Chevrolet dealership in the US, you might probably also heard about it. It's a very famous example. They implemented a chatbot to consult their clients about, what mic what model to choose from. And when asked what are the best trucks on the market, that chatbot gave the answer, like giving the list of most popular trucks on the market. And when in the follow-up question, like what truck would you choose, it gave the answer Ford F-150. So can you imagine the frustration of people who implemented it in Chevrolet dealership? So yeah, although this example is funny, right? But there are others that might not be, might be more serious, like data leak, right? So this is another limitation that we need to consider when creating these applications, and especially when they're customer-facing. Another one is, I would say the last one I would talk about because there are lots of them. The training data poisoning is something also that we need to pay attention to, because if the data that the model has been trained on is spoiled intentionally or unintentionally, then the model would be, I would say, that they wouldn't be useful at all. So you would need to redo the project, clean up the data and do it again. So this is, this attack vector is not as popular in smaller applications, but it could be something of a threat for large implementations. And in order to handle that, there are also solutions coming up, like guardrails that would protect you from inputs and outputs of the model, so it would verify what are the inputs, so that there are no prompt injections, and that would verify what's the output of the model is, so that they're securing the output of that model. But in any case, like depending on your specific application, you need to understand the level of risk of this model, being not accurate, giving low quality outputs and so forth. So if the risk is high, you would want to implement quality management systems and also test these models. There are also ways to test large language models as well. So this is something to keep in mind, and I will go back to risk assessment a few times more. This is things that when we implement the AI, we need to do. Another one, of course, is the compliance. I know it's boring for you, but the compliance thing is real. And at this point, the regulations are, far behind the development of AI. So but they will catch up. There is an EU AI Act that is already working, and I will not, go into the details of what exactly you need to do in order to comply with the EU Act. But these are just general recommendations you would do, because that if you do, you would probably be out of trouble of any compliance regulations, because they are designed to protect personal data first. They're designed to ensure that these systems, autonomous systems, they don't give, they don't harm people. Like, for example, in healthcare applications, if you give a bad health advice, that would harm people, right? So these regulations are targeted onto that, and also securing intellectual rights. So and again, as you can see here, one of the top 3 recommendations is to perform risk assessment, and this is the starting point for everything. You perform risk assessment, you evaluate what's going to be if the model is hacked, what's going to be if the data is leaked, what kind of data the model is processing, and so forth. So, and for high-risk applications, you want to ensure that it's explainable and and there are no biases in the responses. And implement the quality management system and what I've already mentioned. So what would be the practical steps to take when you are considering the implementation of AI solutions? And I want to bring up these 6 points, 6 steps you could use in order to, to implement your solution well. So number 1 is choosing the right use case. This is by far, the most important thing, because most of the companies, most of the clients we're working with they don't know exactly, what use case to choose, and this is where you usually consult them. And my recommendations is that you can choose the use case where in the process you use large volumes of data, or decisions in the process rely or depend purely on data. In that use cases, usually, the AI applications are more effective, and of course, routine operations. And you don't need to, to try and automate the full process. What we recommend is starting with very small thing, proving the concept. And if the concept doesn't work, you go back to the first stage and redo your evaluation of what use cases you want to automate. So you start small, then you review the data, and you need to consider and you need to prepare the data set. If you are to train the model, you need to prepare the data set. It must be clean. You need to consider the data quality. And if you don't have data governance, this is time to start thinking about the data governance, the strategy, the taxonomy, the policies, the identification of data sources, what is master data source, and so forth. So, but for the small pilot, you can compromise because you may use large models and you may use sample data sets in very limited settings, and then you pilot it. But when you pilot it, don't expect high accuracy at the beginning. It's never the case. What you need to do, what you aim for during the piloting phase is just proving the concept that it works. Knowing what the level of quality of the data you were operating with, and knowing that the limits of the use case you've chosen, you just need to figure out and make a decision whether or not it will work if we continue in fine-tuning the model, preparing the data, or not. If not, you go back to the first stage. If yes, you can continue with scaling that case. Like I will give you an example. For example, if you choose to automate the recruitment process, like for example for CVs processing, right? You can prove this use case, and if you see that the model selects the candidates right, you can go two ways. First of all, you can extend this specific use case, like for example, making a chatbot that would do the candidate screening instead of interviewing, right? So it would save time. Or, so you develop the model more, or you replicate this case to other scenarios. Like if you process CVs, you can process invoices, you can process something else, right? So these are two different paths you can take. You can take them at the same time, but this is what we also recommend when you scale in the case. And while you scale in the case, the fifth step, again, assessing risk, you need to understand what's going to happen if the model is hacked. What's going to happen if it produces bad results, right? If it's just a screening process, okay, 5% of candidates, good candidates, will not go into our recruitment pipeline. Is it good or bad? So it's up to you to decide. And if you are implementing a critical process with the AI, you probably want to establish some quality management system in place and establish guardrails and security safeguards to ensure that it's not vulnerable. So these are practical steps I wanted to share. And the last thing that I wanted also to share, and it's it's relevant for this audience, for environment, is actually how usually we do projects, especially co-pilot ones, so especially task-specific models. So usually when you want to do, if you consider this graph, this is a research by Google. If you use large language model for task-specific application, it doesn't need lots of data. So the big benefit of using it for pilot projects is that because you don't spend lots of time preparing data and fine-tuning the model. But then once you prove the concept, what you want to do is you want to reduce the size of the model. You don't want to use large language model in every application. Well, first of all, it will you can't control the large language model in all of the senses, right? So you want a very specific model that would be 100-fold smaller and perform at the same level of accuracy. But in order to fine-tune a model, you need to have training data sets, and you need to spend time training that. But what we started using just recently is so-called distilling step-by-step process, which is an interesting application because this is where you fine-tune a model based on data and reasoning provided by the large language model. So large language model automates the process of preparing a new model for you. So I just wanted to share with you this example. As I said, this approach, it helps save on hardware performance, which is, of course, consequently will help save the energy consumed by the model and so forth, and be faster, just faster. So this is all I wanted to share with you about AI. I hope it was useful. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much indeed. Please stay. There's some questions coming in for Evgeny here, and please keep them coming because you actually stopped before time, which is excellent, because then we have more time for questions. So, and I also would like to ask the tech team here, do we have the online audience following us here now? Because we did have some initial hiccups here. Do we have the online audience with us? We do. Excellent. And for those of you writing questions following us online, please use the chat in the Vimeo channel that you are following the event from. So, first question, what is the climate impact of using AI? I mean, we all know that this is a tricky and
I was prepared for this question.
Of course you were.
That's why I showed the last slide, actually, and I added it yesterday.
May I ask you just to step a little bit to the side, because maybe somebody missed the QR code. So
yeah, sure. So, at the moment, it consumes like 80% of data centers' power consumption. 80%. Yeah. So, but there are reasons for that. First of all, that the hardware is not designed for this type of applications. Usually, I mean, it's getting better, of course, but it's not efficient to use that hardware that we conventionally use for training language models, first of all. Secondly...
so in saying that this might change?
It will change. It will change, first of all. And secondly, what we are going to is we don't want to use large models for any application. Mm-hmm. And that's something that, I think that the level of usage of large language model will actually go down in a few years because there will be specific models to help businesses in their applications. So, and there's lots of consumption coming from training large language models, so to create large language models. So that's why it will go down, and of course the hardware manufacturers will get better at making chips that would be tailored for these models to run on.
So if I may add on a question here, from your perspective, let's say in 5 years, we are now at 80. This is really difficult, of course, for you to estimate.
Yeah, it's very difficult, but I think we will. I can't make a prediction here.
It's not easy. So the next question here goes, how many in the EPD system are already using AI supported tools, and for what? Do you know this?
No, actually I don't know. I don't think a lot.
It's a very EPD specific question. So maybe we'll hand that to the next speaker or somebody else down the line that might want to answer that one. So how can a company know when to invest and adopt AI to their business? That one you know.
Yeah. As I shared, every company currently is looking for a use case, for a good use case. So I would say 100% of companies, 100%, without a joke, are like having some budgets allocated to AI research projects or something like that. In order to, and this is a problem because you can't make, all size fit all solution and give this advice to everyone how to find the best use cases. It depends on the industry. But as I mentioned, you need to consider what processes take lots of data to work with. And I would search for the use cases that involve these processes and try to pilot very small things, try to implement, a very small process and then scale it up. See if it works.
A question from my side here. Whenever you introduce different new techniques into workplaces, how do you see the risk of sort of the generation gap or the less enthusiastic staff not really wanting to start using these tools? And what effect can that have on the EPD system if we have some employees that might be less keen on using these techniques, or in general in the business world?
Yeah, in the business world, what we are doing is simplifying things. So when we are implementing systems, we want them to be as simple for the end user as possible. So if you are currently you used to work with the Excel spreadsheet, then you can work with just the simple chat interface, which is the most common implementation, which is more simple. So I don't see any generational gaps of using these systems that we develop for our clients. But I can see that there is a generation gap in using general tools like ChatGPT or something like that. But for business, usually there is no such thing. And I think, to be honest with you, people who are currently using all of those general tools, ChatGPTs and so forth, they will become more efficient, of course, in their workplaces when there is no automation with the AI. So they will automate their own work with using these things. So that is true. That will be a factor.
Thank you very much. We did get one more question here. How easy is it for hackers to steal back-end sensitive data from a training model via the agent or the assistant?
Yeah, that's a tricky one, and because it's
tricky and important one.
Yeah, it's. I would say the AI at the moment is widely used in cyberspace, and especially on on bad side of that space and by hackers. This is what we see and observe in Ukraine as well. There are lots of cyber attacks. And yeah, we are one of the companies who are working with it and dealing with it daily. And you might have already heard about the biggest, the major telecom provider in Ukraine was hacked. It was one of the biggest attacks ever. So they shut down the whole network for a week. Yeah, and nobody knows what was the root cause. And it was indeed like they were changing attack patterns along the way. So I would say the threat comes not from using AI in business. The threat comes in using AI by hackers to to be undetectable and yeah, go through the security measures.
And how do you foresee the security aspects to be, to change over time? Is it?
It will change because we are also using AI to defend against those. And there are lots of different systems that help us, because conventionally what you do, you log everything and you monitor everything, and then you depend on a person who is looking at this, red flags and so forth. But since the red flags might not come into place, you want the model that would also change its, where it looks at on the go, depending on what's going on. So there are different applications in cybersecurity, in cyberspace, and it's developing pretty rapidly as well.
So it's hopeful that we will be able to sort of cover up those loopholes. Yeah. There's a final question here, and I love this question. It says, why does AI not answer, I don't know?
The simple answer...
Because it never does.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason for that is because, as I said, it just matches the pattern. And it never, I guess it never faced a text where, after some sentence, there is, I don't know answer. So usually it thinks it knows things, but that's because the limitation. It just matches the patterns. In very simplistic way, of course, they are developing, by the way, and you can, the latest model, which is currently in preview 01, is one of the big breakthroughs in that department. It's, it uses this chain of thought, prompting, and so forth. So it will get better at it, but at the moment, it just thinks that your prompt is, it does make sense. It never thinks critically.
Even if you ask about how you walk across the English Channel, right?
Yeah.